Okay, this might look a bit odd. I'm going to use this this bench here to simulate a canoe so you can see what the paddle does in the water. Bear with me. Okay, so let's imagine I'm in a canoe. This would be the bottom of the canoe, and there'd be a side wall of the canoe here, and the gunwale would be sitting here somewhere. In my canoe normally I'd be sat on a seat, and my feet would be flat like this underneath it, but I haven't got a seat, so I'm going to have to prop myself up a bit, but imagine my feet are flat. Not that it matters for this. Anyway, so further to the other videos, I mentioned briefly when we spoke on the phone about a J-stroke. So J-stroke is essentially a combination of a forward paddle stroke and a steering stroke, like a rudder at the end. What you guys are doing at the moment is absolutely fine. Let's get that clear. You guys are paddling in a straight line, and you guys are steering effectively as well. So don't worry about that. If this doesn't work, stick to what you know. If you guys are doing something that's working for you, it's no problem at all. If you want, you can have a go at the J-stroke. This is a way of making your forwards paddling and steering a lot more efficient. If you're going a long journey, you want to save energy. So anything you can do to that will help. So what you guys are currently doing is you're currently placing the paddle in, pulling it past you. This is at the back, by the way. You're pulling it past, and then you're flicking the paddle over and steering from the back of the boat, which is fine. But if we pay attention to this side of the blade here, where we've got the logo, that's the power face. That's the side of the paddle that's pulling the water. Okay. So at the moment you're reaching forward, doing your forward paddle stroke, and then you're flicking the blade over to use the other side of the blade, and you're then pushing with that side of the blade to steer the boat. As I said, that's fine, but what it does mean is you're using both sides of the blade. So if you want to be more efficient, you can just use the one side. To do that, what we're looking at is a steering stroke, is a forward paddling stroke, that as it comes past you, you roll it away from you. You actually roll the paddle over and use that power face, the same side that's been doing the pulling past. As it comes past you, then roll it over, and you then steer away. Okay, and that becomes your steering. So that inherent addition to the forward paddle stroke becomes a forward paddle and a steer as well. And once you get the hang of it, it's very relaxed. But it's a fairly complicated stroke to initially learn. Once you get the hang of it, you won't understand why you never did it in the first place. But there's a few things you can do to help. Firstly, regardless of where you're sat in the boat, you can angle yourself a little bit, so you get right up to the gunwale if you can, or as close to it as you can, and angle your body and your legs towards the side that you're paddling on. That will be really, really helpful. Next, as I said, getting up against the gunwale. The reason we do this, the reason we angle ourselves this way, is because we want to turn into our stroke. So I'm going to sort of get into the J-stroke via looking at really good sort of forward paddling technique. So sitting slightly off towards the side that you're paddling on, aiming your body and your legs towards the side you're paddling on. When we go for our initial part of the stroke, we're reaching forward, so leaning and reaching, and we're looking for kind of a capital letter A shape. So if you think of one side of a letter A, that's the other side of a capital A, and that's the cross piece in the middle. We're placing our paddle in, and this is vertical. The more vertical we can get our paddle stroke, the more of a straight line it's making down the side of our boat, and the more that's going to push us in a forward motion. If we have the paddle slightly at an angle, it's going to be more of a curve on our stroke, and that's going to steer the boat, not the way we want it to. So, facing that side of the boat, nice vertical paddle, top hand over the bottom hand, so stacked hands, one over the other, nice vertical paddle. So we're reaching forward, getting that capital letter A, pushing down with our top hand, and turning our body, which pulls the lower arm back. So don't think of it as pulling the lower arm in, think of it as turning the body to actually bring that arm backwards. Okay, so place the paddle, push down with the top hand, twist into it, and as the paddle comes past, we're then going to roll our knuckles, if you like, and our top hand away from us. Okay, so place it in, pull it past, roll over, and then goes into a steer. Now this will feel really strange on the top hand, it will feel strange on the top here, and the bottom hand, it will feel like you're sort of pulling away. There's a couple of things we can do to tune that. The top hand, you can loosen it off a little bit as you're pulling, so as you bring the paddle past, rotate it around into that J, and you can just relax that top hand a little bit. And the lower hand, you can guide the paddle out, but you can also kind of, if you want to, lever it off the gunnel a little bit. If you've heard of a pry stroke, which is where you lever the paddle away, it's similar to that. You bring it past and you kind of get it into that stroke, but you lever it just below where your hand is usually, and lever it off the gunnel, okay, and that gives you a bit of leverage to sort of steer the boat around. But anyway, place it in, turn with it, start to roll it into that stroke, and you're actually then bringing it outwards as much as you need to, and that forms that kind of capital letter J in the water, the look of a letter J, depending which side of the boat you're on, be forwards or backwards J. So, capital A, turning into it, pushing down with the top hand, rolling over into that steering stroke, and then bringing it out, okay? And you'll start to get this lovely pattern as you paddle, okay? Lean forward a bit into it, and start steering. Now, you'll notice as I'm kind of talking about it, and you'll be doing the same as you're practicing it, I'm looking down at my paddle. This isn't ideal. What we want to be doing is turning our body towards the side we're paddling on, getting into that J-stroke shape. But the key part of this is it's a steering stroke. So we want to be looking forwards. The only way you're going to know if your steering stroke's working is by looking at the front of the boat, all right? And it's constant. So yes, you can look around and see what's going on, but always, every stroke, just have a little glance forward, just see where the front of the boat is. And just as soon as it goes off course, do what you need to, whether it's a J-stroke to sort of push the front of the boat towards the side you're paddling on, or you just do a forward stroke and then a little tuck around the back, like a little miniature sweep stroke, sweeping the water around the tail of the boat to push the nose of the boat away from the side you're paddling on. And you're only going to be able to do those little fine adjustments if you keep looking at the front of the boat. So eyes on the bow, always, as soon as it goes off course, little corrections. Hopefully that should stand you in good pace, okay? So remember, place it in, push down, turn into the stroke. I apologise, we live near Heathrow Airport. A-frame, push down on the top, pull back with the bottom hand, steering away as it comes past. Should end up quite parallel to the boat, and then steering, okay? So, hopefully that's helpful. Probably doesn't help me being on the bench and trying to explain it this way. If I was in a boat on the water, it'd probably look a lot more fluid. But hopefully that's given you some idea as to what the paddle is doing. Cool.